Hello, welcome to this video. My name is Jan Hoogland. I am an Arabist and I am a retired assistant professor of Arabic. If you want to know more about me, you can read on my website, of which the address is written somewhere here on the About page. Behind me I project some photos I took in various Arab countries. This photo here behind me was taken in Morocco. I am the person behind the Media Arabic text collection, and part of this text collection is the Syntactic Coding System. In this video lesson I am going to explain to you how this coding system works. I will explain the principles to you. In a few seconds I will switch from looking in the camera, looking at you, to a recorded screen session on my computer. First, I will explain to you the principles of the coding system, and then I will demonstrate to you how it works on the website. So let's switch to the screen session now. Okay, so we hereby continue the explanation of the syntactic coding system, which is part of the Media Arabic text collection. It is a system to explain to you how complex sentences in Arabic are constructed so that you can understand the exact meaning of a sentence. This is what the syntactic coding system looks like if you go to the tab Syntactic Info on the screen. So here you have chosen a text. This is the text SHO002. So you've chosen this text, and then you went to the tab Syntactic Info, and then you would see this. You see a text, and in a number of lines you will see a number of red blocks, and these red blocks indicate the presence of a syntactic code, and the syntactic code always refers to a tip giving you information about the sentence, how it is constructed. One other thing about the appearance of the text: green words are words indicating names of persons or geographical names. So here it says Michel Rocard, who was a former French prime minister. Now, what is the purpose of the syntactic coding system? The purpose is to help you understand the structure of complex sentences. Now, what makes a sentence complex in Arabic? Well, the answer to that question is the presence of syntactic hurdles in the sentences. And what are hurdles? Hurdles are difficulties in understanding a sentence. These hurdles can be the result of a number of limitations we know in Arabic. For instance, the fact that vowels are not written, that there are no capital letters, that interpunctions, so commas and full stops can be limited. Another reason for the presence of syntactic hurdles can be certain syntactic rules that determine the position of certain parts of a sentence in separate positions. For example, the verb can or must be at the beginning of a sentence, but then the object with, if this verb has a fixed preposition, the prepositional object of the verb can be separated from the verb because the subject will be in between them. And if the subject contains a relative clause, then there can be a relatively long distance between the verb and its preposition. Other reasons for hurdles can be the multiple meanings of, for instance, the preposition li. Or if you don't say a preposition li, but just the letter lam as a prefix before verbs, nouns, or whatsoever, then it can be li or la. I will explain this later. Also, the highly frequent use of verbal nouns or masdars in Arabic is a reason for can create syntactic hurdles. So this is why I have devised this system of syntactic codings in the text. But these are, of course, just a tool, and in the end, after studying Arabic using the syntactic coding system, after some time you need to be able to understand texts yourself without having these syntactic codes available. Because in normal text, in normal life, there are no syntactic codes for you, to help you, to guide you. Now let's discuss the general principles of the syntactic coding system. As I already said, and as you can see here, there are little red blocks on the lines, and these little red blocks indicate that there is a tip available for you. If you click on the red block, the tip will become available, and you will see it in the at the bottom of the screen. This is where the tip shows up. There are start codes and end codes. Start codes refer to the words following the code. So if we see this red block here, the tip that will be there refers to the word or words following. On the other hand, there are end codes as well. I'm not sure there is one in this text, but this would mean this could be a candidate for an end code. One red block and the code and the tip that is behind it might indicate that this is the end of a relative clause, for instance. Later, when we go to the online demonstration, I will show you some examples. So this is about start codes and end codes. So a tip always contains a code and a definition. In this particular example, the code is P1 and the definition is prepositional object of preceding verb or masdar. These two are always related to each other. The set of codes, especially the most frequent codes, it may be easy for you just to learn them by heart, but by just using it properly, you will start recognizing P1 after some time because it's a highly frequent code. So there's always a code and a definition, and there may be additional information. In this case, there is. There is additional information telling you that the verb, which actually is a masdar, the M, is the word qarar. This tip relates to this preposition fi here in the text, and it indicates that fi and what follows after fi is a prepositional object, and it belongs to the verb or the masdar al-qarar, the decision. A decision about. So these two words belong together. The codes. The whole syntactic coding system consists of 66 different codes. And it may seem a lot to you, but let me reassure you. There are 18 highly frequent codes, and they cover 86% of all codes. Which means that a limited set of 18 codes covers most of the codes you will encounter in the texts. Another reassurance should be that 11 codes are end codes. So that's not really something you have to focus on, and that's not related to any grammatical rules or whatsoever. And another reassurance could be that some of the codes were added just for the sake of completeness. But they are very rare in modern standard Arabic media language. Of these codes, the first letter always gives you a clue about the category. For instance, there are 4 codes starting with R, so R1, 2, 3, and 4. They all refer to relative clauses, so R relative. There are 4 S codes as well, and they are all related to subordinate clauses. And I already mentioned the example of li or la. Well, the letter L indicates one of the codes with the lam prefix before nouns, verbs, etc. There is a document available with all these codes. And not only is there a list of codes available, I have also created a document illustrating all the codes with a number of example sentences. And those examples are fully voweled, and there are also English translations available. I will show you a few pages of these documents now. Here you have a part of the list of codes. You can download the document as a PDF, and below this video I will write the link so you can easily download it. This is one page, and I'll show you another page of a document showing examples. So here in this document, here we have code A1, which is a circumstantial accusative, and there are 10 sentences showing you how this circumstantial accusative is used in Arabic. دخل الطالب ضاحكا is the first example of A1. And this is another page of the document with the examples. Here you have the already mentioned codes for li or la, L6, L7, L8, and there even is a L9. Here's another example. This is a list of these 18 most frequent codes. Since they occur very often in the text, this means that they are referring to grammar rules or grammatical phenomena that are highly frequent in Arabic, which means that you certainly should have studied these before. I mean, I assume you have taken grammar classes before starting to read Arabic, and all these topics, all these grammatical rules should have been part of your study of Arabic before you wanted to start to read media language. A few words about the end codes. As I said, there are 11. They all apply to the clauses that can occur within sentences. So there are 4 types of relative clauses. I will explain them later. This means there are also 4 end codes to indicate the end of these different types of relative clauses. Well, the same for subordinate clauses, conditional clauses, and the circumstantial clause, the hal clause or the hal sentence. I only provide an end code if it is necessary, and I will define necessary as it can be a hurdle, in my opinion. I'm sorry for the typo in the presentation. Now, how does syntactic coding work in the Media Arabic text collection? Syntactic codes are available in 2 tabs. The Syntactic Info tab and the Vocabulary Syntax tab. In my opinion, this combined vocabulary syntax tab is the most important tab you would use studying the texts of the Media Arabic text collection, because all the information is combined. Information about the meaning of words and information about the construction of the sentences. As I said before, there are these little red blocks that you can click on to receive information. As for the content of the tips, I already explained this. Additional information is only given if it's relevant, And again, I can define relevancy by defining what is not relevant. Well, if it's obvious, if a relation between two words is obvious, for example, if they are very close to each other, then it's not necessary to provide this information. By the way, this whole criterion of relevancy applies to the whole system of syntactic coding, of course. I only provide information about the structure of a sentence if I think it is necessary, because otherwise you might have difficulty in understanding the sentence. An example of this irrelevant information could be a relative clause that immediately follows its antecedent. In that case, the relationship is totally obvious, and there is no reason to explicitly mention the antecedent in the tip about the relative clause. There are 3 levels of syntactic information, and on the text selection page you can make a choice whether you want to see all the tips, just a limited number, which will mean that you won't see the easiest ones, or you can also choose to only see the complex codes. So there are 3 different levels of codes, and depending on the choice you make, you will be presented with a number of syntactic codes and tips. To give you an example, the relative clause, I already mentioned there are 4 types of relative clauses. The easy type, of course, is a relative clause with a definite antecedent. So a relative clause starting with alati, aladi, or aladina, of course. That's the easy one. A little more complicated is a relative clause R2 with an indefinite antecedent, because then there will not be aladi or alati. And it is my experience that my students very often could not notice the presence of a relative clause of this type. And there's are 3 relative clauses with a compound relative pronoun like ma or man. And then again, a more complex type of relative clause is the relative clause with a participle as a verb. These are of the type where you might encounter a participle like al-marghub fiha, for instance. I will now quickly present to you a few examples on these 3 different levels. So the easy codes, like A2, the accusative of specification, the tamyiz accusative, التلميذ الأكثر اجتهادا. Again, I assume you have studied grammar, so this should not be new or strange to you. C1 conditional clause, the possible conditional clause. إذا زرتها مرة فلن تنساها أبدا. If you visit her once, you will never forget her. L5, the preposition li is a fixed preposition with a verb or a masdar. دعا الملك الحكومة للقيام بجهود أقوى. دعا li, to call upon someone to do something. S2 is a subordinate clause starting with a conjunction. Can be li anna. Here I've chosen an example with haythu. There's a second category of not so easy codes. There's a C3, a concessive clause. That's always with walau and maybe with hatta walau. So the sentence as an example, and you can find it in the document with all the examples. سأنهي العمل حتى ولو لم يساعدني أحد. A circumstantial clause or the hal sentence is also a code of category 2, which means not so easy. دخل طالب وهو يضحك. And L3 is also of the same category. L3 means li plus a masdar. إن دبلوماسية الفلسطينية تعمل لتحقيق أهدافها. لتحقيق, to realize. Then a few examples of the complex codes. There's L4, preposition li plus an object of masdar in subordinate clause with masdar or participle. Well, that's a long definition. Again, you can find examples in the document you can download. The same applies to R4, V1 and V2. Well, this is once more an illustration of the effect of the 3 different levels. If we look at this text, we will see that the number of syntactic codes available will decrease when you choose a higher level of complexity. If you choose all, in this version, there are 22 syntactic codes available for you. If you choose limited only, there are 13. And if you choose the most complex level, you'll still see 5 different syntactic codes with tips. Now, the syntactic coding system, as I already said, is a tool for you to help you to make progress in reading and understanding Arabic. So maybe when you start using the Media Arabic text collection, you will choose texts on level 1, I would say, so with all information. After some time you should try to switch to the next level and choose limited information in order to make progress in reading independently without having all these tips available. And then again, after some time in the next stage, you should switch to looking at texts using the complex level of information only. Okay, now we'll switch to the demo. I will show you how it works live with choosing a level of syntactic information, opening a text. Then we'll go to the tab with syntactic information, and I will show to you some of the red blocks and the tips behind them and explain them to you. So here we are on the text selection page. I will simply choose the first text available. I will choose all available syntactic information, and I will push the start button. We see the meta information about the text, and we go to the tab syntactic info. And here we see the text with a number of red blocks. Since it starts with 2 red blocks next to each other, I will skip those first and treat the other blocks first, and then come back and choose and explain to you the meaning of the 2 red blocks together. So here is a red block. If I click on it, the tip shows up in the bottom of the screen. The word isaba is a masdar with verbal meaning. This means it can be translated or should be translated in English with a verb. It was announced that 5 others were wounded or hit. وإصابة 5 آخرين. It was announced that, well, and that part we will talk about it later, and it was announced that 5 were wounded. So that's the meaning of M1. The next one is this red block. If we click on it, we see the information. This is a P1, so a prepositional object of a preceding verb or masdar. And here I have provided the additional information. The masdar is an-naql ila. So if we see here ila, and an-naql is in the line above. وأشارت إلى نقل شهيد والجرحى إلا مستشفى شهيد. So they referred to the transportation of the martyr and the wounded person to the hospital. So ila belongs to naql. That's the reason for the presence of this red block and this tip about it. Let's go to the next tip. If I click N2, negative clause with acceptive expression, la ... إلا لم تتمكن من إجلاء الشهيد إلا بعد انسحاب. So they were not able to evacuate the martyr then after the retreat of the forces. Only after the retreat of the forces they were able to evacuate the body of the martyr. So this is what we call a negative clause with acceptive expression. The last red block is again about a masdar. إلى بعد انسحاب قوات الاحتلال. So we have the retreat of the forces of the occupation. Then of course you can translate this in English with retreat. You can also translate it with after the occupation forces had retreated. This is just to draw your attention to the fact that this is a masdar, because a masdar is a very important way of expressing things in Arabic. Now let's have a look at the first two red blocks, two blocks together. First one tells us O1, direct object of preceding verb, and the second one is again a masdar with verbal meaning. Object of preceding verb. Well, there's only one verb preceding alana. So there's not really a necessity to provide this in the additional information. It was announced that, this or that was announced. And then this or that is the direct object of the verb. This is why the tip of direct object is mentioned. Istishhad, so the killing, the dying, the martyrdom is the object of the verb. And istishhad, the getting killed, the becoming a martyr, is a masdar. This is why the M1 code is here as well. So as you see, sometimes two codes can apply to the same word or words following the code. Okay, well, I hope to have explained to you a little bit more in detail how the syntactic coding system works. And now back to the last slide. This is just to announce to you that I intend to make more explaining videos about a number of specific codes from the syntactic coding system. For instance, the AP code, you can look it up in the list and in the document with all the examples, because you won't find anything about this in the grammar books.
Well, I hope the syntactic coding system is clear to you now. So please use it, and I hope you will benefit from it, and you will be able to improve your reading skills in Arabic. In the near future, I hope to publish more videos to explain some of the codes in the system. If you subscribe to my channel, you will stay tuned. Enjoy using the Media Arabic text collection, and I wish you lots of success in improving your command of Arabic.